Key negotiations are underway in North Korea to save a summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un. On Twitter, the president said a team of U.S. diplomats crossed into the North Sunday to make arrangements. There's also a group of American officials in Singapore working on possible summit preparations.
The president also praised North Korea, saying it has brilliant potential and will be a great economic and financial nation one day. Ben Tracy is following the latest in Beijing.
So we're looking at June 12th in Singapore. That hasn't changed.
The on-again, off-again summit appears to be on again. But this weekend, it was Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in who met for a surprise summit of their own, their second meeting in less than 30 days. They met for 2 hours on the North Korean side of the demilitarized zone. North Korean state media says that at the meeting, Kim Jong-un expressed his fixed will that the summit with President Trump take place. Briefing reporters in Seoul on Sunday, President Moon revealed that Kim also said that he is still committed to the complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. But in the past, that offer has come with a North Korean demand that the U.S. pull out its more than 28,000 troops stationed on the peninsula and end its security commitments with South Korea and Japan. Former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper on Face the Nation.
The North Koreans could assert that we have a responsibility to denuclearize and restrict our nuclear umbrella, meaning no B-1s, B-2s, or B-52s flying into the Korean peninsula, landing in the Korean peninsula, or in operational proximity.
The North Koreans feel they have showed good faith by claiming to blow up their only known nuclear test site last week. At their meeting this weekend, South Korea's president told Kim Jong-un that if he does fully give up his nuclear weapons, that the United States would provide his regime a security guarantee and what he called economic cooperation. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Beijing.
For more on this, we want to bring in Gordon Chang. He's the author of Nuclear Showdown: North Korea Takes on the World. All right, Gordon, welcome. So much to get through here. And I think the first question I have is the definition of denuclearization. Is that clear right now? Has there been an agreed upon definition on both sides, both the North Korean and the U.S. sides?
Yeah, I don't think there's an agreed upon definition. We look at this as sort of dismantlement of North Korea's arsenal. And basically, no more nukes, no more ballistic missiles. Pretty simple. On their point of view, there's a number of different definitions they've used in the past. And as we've just heard, one of them is that the United States give up its nuclear weapons totally. The other is just that we break our treaty commitments to South Korea. You know, we don't know exactly what the North Koreans are going to define as denuclearization in this, but we can be sure that there's going to be a big gap between what they want and what we want.
And Gordon, I want to ask you, many lawmakers and former intelligence officials are extremely skeptical towards North Korea's willingness to actually have these discussions, including Senator Marco Rubio. He was on Face the Nation and he told Margaret Brennan this is all part of a game, but we want to listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
North Korea is a strange place. We're not dealing with Italy or France here or even the old Soviet Union. So they're playing a game. You know, Kim Jong-un, these nuclear weapons are something he's psychologically attached to. They will give him prestige and importance. I mean, we're not talking about him because of his global and economic power. We're talking about them because they have nuclear weapons and long-range missiles, and he knows that. And so for him to give that up is going to be very difficult. So my suspicion remains that he is going to try to get as much sanctions relief as possible without having to give up his weapons. And I think it's going to be a lot of twists and turns along the way to try to get there if it's even possible.
Gordon, do the senator's suspicions have some merit? I mean, what do you think about his argument?
Yeah, the North Koreans don't want to give up anything. But the question is not what the North Koreans want. We know what they want. The question is, what will President Trump do to make the North Koreans give up their weapons? We have overwhelming leverage over the North Koreans right now. Even without the use of force, I think we can disarm the North Koreans. But the question is, will Trump, for instance, go after the Chinese banks that have been money laundering for the North Koreans? You know, China over the last 2 or 3 months has actually been busting sanctions quite openly, and their sanctions enforcement has deteriorated. You know, the question is, what is President Trump going to do about it? And so, you know, if Trump were, for instance, to say to a big Chinese bank, I'm going to unplug you from the global financial system, that would actually have an effect in Beijing. And I think we could see Beijing back away from North Korea. Now, if China is no longer supporting North Korea, Kim has no choice but to give up his weapons, because the choice then is really give up your weapons, and if you don't do that, you're going to fall from power because you're not going to have the money to maintain the regime.
Gordon, the twists and turns have been dizzying, at least even just at this point. So, I mean, you've got Kim Jong-un now agreeing to meet with South Korean President Moon Jae-in for the second time in 30 days. You've got meetings here with U.S. officials as well. What is the incentive here for Kim Jong-un at this moment, and what specifically has changed to get him now to get to this latest point?
Well, two things have gotten Kim generally to the bargaining table. One of them is the threats that we'd strike his nuclear and his missile facilities, but more important is the sanctions. The sanctions enforcement in the Trump administration have been enhanced. And it's not just U.S. sanctions, of course, it's UN sanctions as well. Now, we've crimped the flow of money into the regime, but we haven't gone after all of it. So, for instance, there's money from Russia, money from China, and a lot of money coming in from Africa. We've gone after a lot of that, but there's still a lot of work to do.
And one more thing, if June 12th doesn't happen, are we better off or worse off? Well, I mean, there was some initial talks. I mean, are we in for, is this going to be a long game?
This is going to be a long game because the North Koreans at this particular time don't see it in their interest to give up their weapons. Now, Trump can change that incentive structure. He can change it so dramatically that the Chinese think it's in their interest to back away from North Korea. He can change it so that the North Koreans believe that, yes, they've got to do what he wants. But we're not there yet. And it's a question of, again, what is Trump willing to do? So I don't think that this is a Kim issue. This is an American issue.
We're going to have to, obviously, like everybody else, wait and see. Gordon Chang, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.